Just have it playing and then like...
Well, welcome to our fourth and final poem, Riot by Gwendolyn Brooks. This was a poem that I did. So, this poem is essentially just like a summary of it. It's basically about a riot that happened somewhere. And so, you've got the two sides. It happened during the Civil Rights Movement sometime during the 20th century. So, you have the whites and the blacks. And it focuses more on a single white person, and it begins with like a description of how that white person like is so much better than the black person, or like all of the different things that they have that the black people and the Negroes don't have. And so like well, before the camera fell. Back to where we were. Basically, the poem's about like the tensions between the whites and the blacks. So it builds up the white people, and specifically the main character, the main white character is John Cabot, who Brooks uses a lot of imagery with prepositional phrases in her first stanza to show that the whites are better than the blacks. And like an example is describing John Cabot. She says, "All white blue rose below his golden hair, wrapped richly in right linen and right wool." So or like white blue rose, he's so white that he's almost blue, and then it's beneath his golden hair. So he's just like, when you think of golden, you think of someone powerful, rich, and when you look down at the next section, it sticks out right there. So there's some visual prosody with the line, because the Negroes were coming down the street. So it talks about how John Cabot just starts to forget everything that he was thinking of, and like all the best things that he had in life, just because the Negroes were coming down the street. Oh, excuse me. And then it goes on to, she compares the Negroes with poor, and she used poor as the subject of the sentence to describe the Negroes. And with two predicate adjectives, sweaty and unpretty, she describes poor as well. So she's saying that just creates an even like larger contrast between the whites and the blacks, because the blacks were poor and sweaty and unpretty.
So with that, can I ask, why do you think that John Cabot was forgetful of everything he ever had when he feels that the Negroes are coming down the street? Do you think it's like a fear or like a hatred? What do you think motivates that feeling that goes on in his gut?
Well, I mean, the title of the poem is Riot, and so basically with the riot, you think of like mass chaos. Like what immediately comes to your head is mass chaos, protesting, and violence everywhere. So with this one specifically, like after Brooks says that the Negroes are coming down the street, she then goes on to say that it wasn't like the two dainty Negroes in Winnetka, which that's an allusion to an actual event that happened, because there was a riot in Winnetka where it started out just like a bunch of high school students all were like messing around with like a cop car, and then more cars joined in, and they started rocking them and trying to start a riot basically, and it ended up being peacefully resolved and nothing really happened. So she's saying that like her message in this poem is, she's saying like that the black people are here and they're starting to rise up, and they're basically, they want to have equal rights with the white people. So I mean, Brooks wrote a lot about the political atmosphere at the time, especially between blacks and whites. She wrote about like the problems that were there during the time, and it then goes on to say, she also adds some French in there. I'm gonna butcher this, but I took Spanish. John Cabot says, "Gros, que tu es grossier." That was bad, but that basically says like rude, you are rude. And the use of French there is kind of tied into how, like, during the medieval times they would use French to show like their high class in society, in the court, and whatnot. And then we see, like, towards the end, we see the scaredness and the fear that the white people, or John Kabat, has against the black people when he combines, like, he says, "Don't let it touch me, the blackness, Lord." And he just encompasses every black person there into the single pronoun it, so he kind of dehumanizes them there. And then he describes them as the blackness. So when you think of blackness, that has a really negative connotation. So it's like the darkness is gonna envelop him. And
so would you also believe that, like, at the time, do you think that, I know it's crazy to say in this day and age, but do you think that sometimes racism could have been religiously motivated as well?
yeah, I mean, I feel like that could be a part of it. And in the end, especially, like the final line, he said, or John Kabat cries out when he's dying at the hands of the black people in the riot. He cries out, "Lord, forgive these niggas that know not what they do." And that's an allusion to what Jesus Christ said on the cross when he said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do."
Interesting.
So it's kind of like, even when he's dying, the John Kabat, like, still believes that what he was doing was right. So that just kind of like shows that. So that shows, like, Brooks uses that to show, like, how
He uses religion to make it seem like what he's doing is right.
yeah, basically. And this poem was the first poem that was published by Brooks after she left her mainstream publisher, Harper and Row, and she then went to a small African American press that basically was a fledgling. It was just beginning, and that was the first big thing that they published there, and it basically shows that, like, she said that she would never go back to a white publisher again because she was supportive of blacks, and she ended up donating her money back to that press, or the profit, or her royalties back to that press, so that they could build a bigger press.
Right.
So that's all.
Thank you for watching our final video.
Thank you.